Not all bread is created equal. And if you like yours soft, fluffy, moist, and delicious, then Hero Bread and Buns should be your first choice. But Hero Bread isn't just about taste and texture. It's high in fiber with ultra-low net carbs with 0 grams of sugar. Order today at hero.co and use the code AH10 to get 10% off your first purchase. That's AH10 at hero.co, HERO.co for 10% off your first purchase.
This is
Make It Plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make It Plain.
Get woke.
Ladies and gentlemen, from my point of view and the point of view of many others, I believe, there's been no more effective online organizing than the online organizing that Color of Change has been doing for the relatively few years that it's been in existence. It has made quite a difference, and a difference on behalf of our people, on behalf of African Americans and other people of color as well. So what happens now? We have a president who says black people have always had his black back. He's going to have ours. Is that the case? How do we make sure? Do we just take that for granted, or do we keep on pushing on? We're going to find out about that and get our direction and our marching orders from the vice president of colorofchange.org and also the chair of campaigns at Color of Change, the director of campaign programs. Not the first time with us. We're happy to have her back, our dear, dear Queen Sister, Arisha Hatch. Arisha, how are you? Happy 2021.
Thank you. So good to be here.
And it's a pleasure to have you. Always good to see you as well. So we're looking at this first 100 days. Is Color of Change gonna be polite and just wait and see? Or we gonna push a little bit?
We're definitely going to push a little bit. I don't know about polite. I think one of the things that we've been talking about a lot internally is how we move from this opposition resistance energy that we have all been in for the last 4 years. It's been exhausting to our staff. It's been exhausting to our members. And we're moving into a new phase where we're going to be hopefully doing more co-governance work and what that means. We've had that same experience. We've helped to elect district attorneys across the country who are hoping that will help to reimagine the local criminal justice system. And we know it takes a little bit of time to change some things. We know there's a little bit of patience. We're not expecting the problems that Black people face are big enough that no executive order can get us out of them. And so what we're hoping for are systemic changes that address the root causes of the problems that our families face.
I like that term, co-governance, but let's be sure everybody knows what that means.
It means that we expect to have a voice. We expect to be at the table. We know that we're starting from a different perspective than we started at with Donald Trump. We knew after Donald Trump was elected in 2016 that we wouldn't ask him for anything, that we wouldn't expect anything from him, that he didn't share our values. We're starting from a different base now with Biden. While he is not the perfect candidate or the most progressive or the most conscious or woke from a racial justice standpoint, we know we're in a better organizing position. And so we have to be able to develop relationships. We have to be able to push. We have to be able to celebrate when things go well. We have to be able to, do all of those things together towards the longer term goal of making sure that our people, that our families actually feel change. We deserve Black people elected this administration. We even gave them a majority in the Senate. And we deserve to have promises kept, to have our issues actually dealt with and moved on in this administration.
Yeah. But now we've also, in this administration, we're looking at what has been called the most diverse cabinet. We have the first Black woman in the vice presidency. So I'm sure you recall, when Barack Obama was president, we couldn't criticize. That was inappropriate to criticize the first black president. We had the first black woman vice president. We have this diverse cabinet. Do we treat it the same way? I think we all look back at the Obama years and say, well, maybe we should have said a little something. We're not supposed to just be presidential cheerleaders. We're supposed to hold all presidents accountable. We've got to, would you agree we've got to, or am I wrong? Do we need to approach this a little bit differently?
Absolutely. We experienced this when we were organizing, sending emails to Color of Change members, pushing the Obama administration. And we get a lot of comments from folks like, hey, he's got a lot going on. This is a really hard job. He's the first one in his role, first black man to do this. Give him a break. What we haven't experienced, we don't believe that Color of Change members are going to give the Biden-Harris administration as much leeway as they gave the Obama administration. There's a different level of celebrity. And frankly, the racial justice conversation has shifted. Electing a black president was like a big deal 8 years ago. We're in a much deeper, 12 years ago, we're in a much deeper conversation today about what it means to be progressive, what it means, what our racial justice values are, what types of changes we want to see. And so I think while folks will give this administration some time to wrap their hands around this pandemic that has ravaged Black communities, they deserve the time to sort of fix that. I don't think we're in a no criticism space.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the priorities, especially in this first 100 days. One of them has to do with economic relief for working families, correct?
Absolutely. When we talk to our members, they want to see a competent response to the pandemic. They also want to see relief and more progressive policies. Small Black businesses have suffered. Black women in particular are facing very high levels of unemployment. We are worried about providing for our families, and there needs to be deep shifts in our economic policy under this administration.
Other countries around the world are taking care of their citizens in the midst of this pandemic. The United States hasn't done well at that. I mean, a real demand would be, more meaningful stimulus for individuals and families, right?
More meaningful stimulus. If we were even, to push farther progressive, a universal basic income would seem timely and necessary. But there needs to be some quick, immediate relief. And then we need to think long term about what is a fair economic policy that also addresses the disparities that Black people have faced for generations.
Yeah. And continue to face. Another high list on the list of priorities: substantive policies and implementation around police oversight and reform, correct?
100%. We need the Biden and Harris administration to wield all of the power that they have at the federal level in order to improve the situation that we're facing. I know they made some announcements just a few minutes ago on private prisons, sort of restoring us to Obama era sort of status. But we need them to use every tool available to them to deal with this problem of over-policing and over-incarceration that, for Black people, for the most part, is happening at the state level.
And to the extent that police are kind of governed in state and local jurisdictions, any idea about what leverage a Biden-Harris administration will actually have at the federal level? Arisha, specifically, do we know what they can apply to the state and local level?
Sure. Currently, the federal government is providing money and military equipment to state and local governments. One, we don't believe that they should be doing that. We believe that there are other places that they can allocate their resources. But two, they could they could strengthen the level of transparency that local police departments have to have in order to receive those funds. We still don't have a national database on police killings. We still don't have all sorts of things that would give us more information and more data around, how our communities aren't being made more safe by the current status of policing. And so, there are a number of things that can be done if the Biden-Harris administration is willing to take seriously their pledge to actually work with Black communities to make our homes safer.
Where is color of change these days on the defund argument and the rhetoric of defund the police?
I think that we believe, while we don't use the term defund a whole bunch, we believe that it's an entirely appropriate conversation to talk about budget allocation. We believe that it's an entirely appropriate conversation to think about what we are investing in, not just what we are divesting from. And what we know, what the science says, that investing in communities, investing in small Black businesses, investing in local healthcare and local education, all of these things are better investments than more police officers if our goal is to make Black communities safer and healthier. And so we think that it's a conversation that local communities across the country, local taxpayers should be involved in. Where is the money being spent, and is that actually working towards the outcomes that we want to see?
You say you don't use the term defund.
No, we're talking about investment in things that investment, reallocation of budgets. We have noticed even amongst our members that term has become so polarized that it's almost meaningless. And we're about sort of meeting people where they are and having a real discussion, not getting caught up in unnecessary discussions.
Tell us a bit more about that, about members. So are we finding that people feel as if the terminology was improperly used to cause division, even in the election? I know some Democrats think that. And let's face it, you all have a diverse group of members. Is that kind of the feedback you're getting from members?
I think the feedback that we've gotten is that it's become polarized through its use throughout the time period. We saw much higher spikes of people on our members as we were surveying them in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder and many of the protests this summer that were much more in favor of defund the police. We've seen that right-wing machine come in and redefine what that means. And so folks, if I were to ask my average color of change member, they know that there's something wrong with policing. They know that there's too much money being invested in policing. They know that there is a better way. For my abolitionist friends, there is more work to do to convince people, or allow people to imagine a future without police entirely.
Yeah. Very, very important. Also, you all have been dealing with big tech. You want this Biden administration to deal with big tech too. And to be clear, does that include these social media behemoths and their enabling of the near lynching at the Capitol on January 6th? We talk about big tech. We talking about all of that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We've at Color of Change done a lot of work specifically with social media companies like Twitter and Facebook around our concerns of about how content is policed on their platform. Mm-hmm. Many times putting Black activists and organizers, punishing them while allowing white supremacy and white nationalism and conspiracy theories to flourish on their networks. We've now all seen, we all have seen the outcomes of social media companies completely unregulated policing themselves. Disinformation has led to a literal coup. It has led to a state where, I don't know, last time I saw only 20% of Trump voters actually believed the results of this last election. And so there's a huge problem. The tech companies haven't been able to deal with it themselves, although they took some active measures towards the end to try to push back. But it's a huge issue and remains a huge divide in our country.
Indeed, it does. And I wonder, too, I was thinking about Rashad this morning. I might need two of y'all to talk me down from this. These companies, especially the social media giants, Arisha, get a lot of their support and activity and participation and consumers from African Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And yet at the same time, they promote the racism.
Mm-hmm.
Then on top of that, all of them depend on African American consumers disproportionately. Yet we aren't getting a piece of the pie. Even this new thing, Clubhouse. We all just talking. Mm-hmm. And those are our voices, our intellectual property, our creative spirit. And somebody else is making money off of it. Help me. Am I out of order in saying that? Or I mean, to me, that's a big tech problem too.
That's entirely right. Sometimes that comes out in conversations around diversity within these companies, diversity of board members, diversity of the C-suite levels. But no, many of these companies have built themselves on the backs of Black people, Black users, Black content creators. As far as I'm concerned, Black Twitter made Twitter cool. We don't profit for that. And they are actively doing things that make it harder for us to live our lives, that are increasing racial animus, that are deepening polarization. The algorithms have hurt us, hurt Black communities in real ways.
So this big tech thing is an issue. Now, you all heard Arisha say I'm right, and she agrees with me. So she's enabled me now, y'all. Folk invite me on Clubhouse and they get mad at me because I said it out loud. And they said, "You can't say that, Mark, they're gonna kick us off Clubhouse." I said, "Well, they do that to prove my point." All right. So, we've got to deal with that. And at some point, Lord have mercy, develop our own social media that we own and control, that our people can gather and do that. And to some extent, in some way, the Color of Change community is somewhat of its own social medium, folks. And that's why we want you to get involved. Now, you've been using, since we've been talking, if I've heard you correctly, you've been using the term members. Is that how you refer? So how does one become a member of Color of Change?
Sure, there's easier ways to be members. So currently when we talk about members, it's someone that's recently taken an action on a Color of Change petition. We also have members that donate to us on a monthly basis. We have members that are leaders of local neighborhood teams and squads. But the easiest way to begin participating and to sort of get into that vehicle is to sign a petition or go to our website at colorofchange.org and give us your email address or cell phone number. And at that point, we'll begin to give you actions, whether they're local or national, that you can take and lend your voice to towards change for Black people.
And that's exactly what we need. Folks, we invite you to go to colorofchange.org. Social media alone and just being active on it is not movement. But Color of Change is real movement in the cybersphere, so to speak. And they've been able to make change. Things are different now. If Dr. King had a Color of Change, if the internet existed back then, but we're able to do things effectively. And what Color of Change has been able to do is even scientifically measurable, the successes. Not just folk just running their mouths on social media, but actually making a difference and making these companies respond. A big victory. It was Color of Change that had started campaigning early on for Donald Trump's no good behind to come off of social media. And so that was a victory won by Color of Change. There may have been others involved too, but Color of Change was saying it before anybody else was. And so they've been holding Facebook's feet to the fire. Speaking of which, I know that was a victory, but what's the status of the relationship with Facebook now? I mean, I know there's still a lot more for them to do.
Yeah, we're still in deep conversation. They have a lot of work to do. Luckily, because of the amazing election work that so many Black organizers have led across this country, we're in a different political dynamic, and which Facebook, we hope, has to act differently than they did when there was Republican control. But there's tons of work that they still need to do. And part of it starts with taking responsibility for their role and where this country is at right now. And they sort of still want to deny responsibility while getting a lot of credit for making very small changes.
Yeah. One pat on the back. Mm-hmm. You think, does Facebook need to be broken up?
Yes, Facebook needs to be regulated. Facebook cannot police itself. And it's, too big.
Certainly. All these companies are.
Yeah, it's a public
Yeah, right. No question about it. Arisha Hatch, our sister, working hard on behalf of Color of Change. She is the vice president as well as the chief of campaign. So she's doing a lot of that work in the midst of a pandemic. We wish her well, and her family especially. Please keep them in your prayers. Arisha, we thank you as always. And anything we'd ever help you to promote what Color Change is doing on or off the air, sister, I'm ready. Just give me an assignment. Okay.
I appreciate you.
All right, folks. Arisha Hatch, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. Please remember to listen, like, subscribe, and wherever you get your podcasts, please give the show a 5-star rating. And please do spread the word. Let's all continue to pray for each other during this pandemic and this police-demic. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.
Be a barbecue hero with delicious, ultra-low net-carb Hero Bread, buns, and tortillas. Soft and fluffy, high in fiber, and with 0 grams of sugar, up to 10 grams of protein, coming in at under 100 calories per serving. Oh, and did I mention they taste like their mouth-watering traditional versions? I mean, what's not to love? Use code AH10 for 10% off your first Hero Bread purchase at hero.co. That's AH10 for 10% off at hero.co.